White Picket was brought in to consolidate the employment, but then it quickly became really all things. If it's a system and a process that can be done across the board at all of your different companies, that's HR, that's accounting, that's policies, procedures, the handbook for that matter, the employee handbook, all of that was done at White Picket for its first 3-4 years of inception.
Was there an element of asset protection that was
Yes.
intended for it to be used for as an entity?
Yes, in some ways. I mean, we definitely had attorneys tell us that you'd be better off having a employment. In fact, the lawyer, we called it a PEO, Professional Employer Organization. Now, I later found out, not through that attorney, but I later found out that you actually have to be licensed in a number of ways. You have to have financial audits, kind of like a franchisor has to have. And so we went that direction. We said, we're going to be a PEO, Professional Employer Organization. We're going to go out, and for a little while, 2022, 2023, maybe not 2023, 2021, 2022, we were going to be a PEO. We went and got audited. We got financial audits of our books done, $15,000 to get that audited. And we became a PEO, a licensed professional employer organization. And then I realized that's not at all what I wanted. As I learned more what it was, I realized that's not at all what I want. I want to help businesses, and especially in home services and in pet-oriented businesses, and I especially want to help manage the future businesses and the current businesses I have. But I'm not necessarily looking at having all of the W-2 payroll of every client we may ever have all in the same place. I realized, and that's what a PEO literally is. And then I also realized that ADP is a PEO. Like, PEOs are massive corporations. I want to be a massive corporation in a lot of ways. I don't want to be a massive corporation in the sense of ADP. That's just not something I want. So we weren't a PEO for more than 2 years.
So going back, though, to the point where you knew you wanted it to be a PEO at that time, several years ago, you said that you had to get licensed and audited. What did that process look like?
So I don't remember exactly the licensing process because my vice president of business administration, Jeremy Langlitz, did that. But the audit process, which I didn't have a detailed hand in, but I know enough, it's literally a financial audit. You're paying a company, an outside company, not just any accounting firm. Most accounting firms don't do this. It's too much liability. But you're paying a accounting firm that specializes in audits, internal audits. Certain industries require them. The franchising world, if you franchise your business, your franchise company is going to have an annual audit. We have two companies, Chorby Franchising and Scoop Soldiers Franchising, that both still to this day have to be audited every single year. It's very expensive because there's a lot of liability. That auditing firm is literally putting their stamp of approval, their expertise on your financials, saying these are not just whipped up and made up by some backroom bookkeeper. These are legit. These have receipts to back them up. These have systems and processes. It's an audit. And so certain industries need it. Being a PEO required it. So we kind of were familiar with it with franchising. So we went ahead and did it. And that's about the time we realized this is not what we want. We're not trying to be, at the time, I think we had 130 employees. PEOs have thousands of employees. And unless we were going to grow and try to go and get thousands of employees, home service businesses that White Picket was going to service as a PEO, it just made no sense. And so It was a lesson as an entrepreneur learned. I thought I wanted one thing. And as I learned over time, not long, 6 months time, I realized that's not the direction we want to go.
Yeah. So what direction did you want to go in?
At that time, I wanted to pause for a second and wait, but I've always envisioned White Picket in some capacity doing something with consulting and helping professionalize the industries that we run and that we're in. I should say the industries that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
I always knew White Picket could do that, because if it can do it for us, and if it can consolidate so many things for us that are challenging for the home services industries. Accounting, for example, is not something that most home service businesses have an A++ on. You know, and they might be passing, but they're not. They've got outside bookkeepers that are looking at their books once a month, that are updating them. If they can get the business owner tied down to a once a month meeting, they might be in decent order. But I think that weekly books make a huge difference. And we've got systems and processes at White Picket that can easily be plugged into other businesses that will do bookkeeping weekly and update your books weekly as a home service business.
Yeah. So I remember, I came in at Chorby, Weed Extinguishers, then a week later, we rebranded to Chorby. So when I came into Chorby, and then a short time thereafter, White Picket came around. And at the time, I didn't really have much of an understanding of what its purpose was outside of, from my perspective, being that I was in sales and training development, nothing macro level view of my role at the time. But I remember thinking there was something very attractive to the nature of what White Picket was doing and what it could be doing. And it's something that I wanted to attach myself to, because you have this culmination of the talent of people who are in the industry that are really dang good at their jobs. And there's so much knowledge and application that can be passed on to other people, both in service, but also in education, public education.
Exactly.
There was so much to that. And I was in the training and development space for Chorby. I was like, man, I really want to do that at White Picket, so I can do it at lots of different places. And I remember thinking, like, that's where I want to spend more of my time, is doing that for lots of people, not just for one place.
Right. And yeah, in these last 6 months, as we have evolved into, in the case of the Scoop Soldiers brand, has evolved into a true, a more established franchisor as opposed to an emerging franchisor, in the fact that we're royalty sufficient, right? So as we start looking at that, it's like, okay, White Picket's going through a lot of changes because of that. And is now the time to point that focus outside of our entities? Because for the longest time, I really was wavered on that. White Picket, do I want White Picket to point its focus only inward at our internal companies? Or do I want it to be pointed outward and be a profit center in its own right? I've wavered on that. I've always known eventually it might get there, but I've also wavered on that because, like, you only have so much talent and it's hard to find talent.
Yeah.
And you're right. It appealed to you, I think, always, because it's literally, think about the name, White Picket Team Management. It's, first off, White Picket. The concept is houses, home services, that sort of thing.
I can't tell you, sorry to pause. I can't tell you how many people I talk to and they're like, oh, you're at White Picket Team Fence, right?
Yeah,
or
they want to say White Picket Fence, exactly.
Yeah.
And in some ways, that's by design. That's
right.
what we came from. But it is kind of funny because they'll say White Picket Fence, and I'm like, no, White Picket Team Management.
Yeah,
but it's built around this idea that we want to have a major influence in home services and in franchising home services. And so, I would say we're still in the stage of White Picket's still a blank slate. It's a blank canvas. It's got a foundation. It's got good quality. It's a good quality canvas, but it's still to be painted. It's a canvas yet to be painted. Maybe it's primarily accounting and accounting consulting. Probably not. That'll be one division. Maybe it's leadership development, management consulting. That's my preference. That's what I like. That's what I like the most. But what it could also be is PR management. What I think it also almost certainly will become for my businesses is franchise development. Franchise development won't be done by Scoop Soldiers exclusively or by Chorby exclusively. The department that will handle both of those and other, because I want to be in other pet-oriented franchise businesses. I want to be a multi-brand franchisor inside of the pet industry as a whole. Doggy daycares, mobile pet grooming, maybe something new that hadn't come out yet for pets.
Yeah.
So White Picket is the tip for that. It's where the franchise development will hopefully come.
Yeah, I remember not too long ago when we were talking about what White Picket's future could look like. thinking to myself, it almost in some ways reminds me of a private equity firm.
Yes, it could. I don't know a lot about private equity, but it has been compared to that. One of our board of advisors is big into private equity, and he points out that what we're doing with White Picket and having a parent company, in some ways it's really not, but it is a management entity. It's managing. There's contracts between White Picket and each of our entities that it is managing. So in that sense, there's a private equity standpoint from it. But I don't understand private equity fully enough to know exactly where its parallels are.
Well, I think about like other private equity firms that are in our space that do similar things that White Picket does. There's so much of it where they are building packages in many ways, where they are building a brand around developing franchisors, businesses, but having equity and ownership in those businesses. So I don't know again, I don't know a whole lot about private equity myself, but it seems like there's a crazy amount of similarities between
one of the big differences is White Picket doesn't have an enormous amount of money backing it. Private equity that's what it is. It's a collection of resource. It's a collection of money and investors that are going out and buying something, then are expecting a return in a certain period of time. Usually sooner than later.
Yeah. Generally speaking, you look at the long game.
Yeah, I'm not in a phase. Private equity, I talk trash about it actually probably more than I should, because there will be a season where it will have its place. But in my life and in my businesses right now as an entrepreneur, I don't make enough money, frankly. Private equity wants bigger numbers, bigger profit margins. I tend to put it all back in the business. My businesses tend to lose money because I'm pushing forward 120 months, 10 years, 72 months or 60 months. Private equity tends to think in 12 and 36 months and 48 months and 60 months. They're in and out of the business. Private equity, the way I would look at it, they're looking at the business. Private equity is in multifamily real estate, just as an example. There are lots of things, but they're in that they look at a piece of real estate that has 20 apartment buildings on it. It is an apartment complex and a HVAC company. They look at them the same. They're pieces of property. They're assets.
Right.
And there's a bottom line on those assets. I'm looking at our home service businesses much more like, no, they can lose money. It's okay. If I can afford it, it can lose money for the next 3 years, maybe, or 4 years or 5 years, if it needs to achieve its ultimate goal, which might be 10 years out, not just 3 years out.
So in talking to other business owners in the home services space about what White Picket does, some of the ways that I've framed it is being a partner in the sense of more accountability than it is about ownership in that organization, right? So we want to work with these entrepreneurs and establish what is the most challenging thing in your business? What is causing you the most friction? What is keeping you from growing to whatever it is that you're wanting to grow to? And how can White Picket and the assets of our talent come into play to be a partner with you, both in strategic planning, but also in accountability to help you reach that point? But it's a relationship that's not tied to a bottom line.
Yes.
Right. So there's no equity involved in White Picket's part. There's no bottom line we're looking at, but it is more so a wholesome partnership is how I'm framing that.
Right. And if you look at the three things that we've talked about White Picket being able to help with, basically they're the three big problems that you're going to have. You're usually not going to have all three of them, but you're going to have two of the three probably, or one of the three at any given time. You've got media, marketing, PR. Well, if you've got plenty of people, then you want to market more. So there's your problem. So you want more. You've got plenty of people, but if you don't have plenty of people, you're not worried about marketing. You're worried about people, which that's where the leadership and the management consulting comes in. You talk about people and people management. And the one area I have gotten an enormous amount of money or return on investment in is in hiring people that teach me how to deal with people, hiring consultants that teach me how to deal with people. I didn't realize it at the time as much, but got an enormous amount of value out of hiring somebody that teaches me how to deal with people.
Yeah.
And then the last one is accounting, which is another one. Like, again, this is a weak spot for most businesses. So you got your accounting, you got your marketing, media, PR, and then you got your people, your leadership, consulting, and your management. And that's what I want White Picket to be able to help with is those three macro issues. And some of those things we still work on every day, or all of them we still work on every day. But the PR, for example, doing this, we're still figuring this out. But follow us on our journey and let us work with you. And I'm confident we're gonna get there. The people side of it is something I've learned and is something I think we can provide right now. Like White Picket, we can provide enormous value to so much of the home services industry and the things we've learned and figured out with people and the approach to take with your team members. And we're not perfect at it. There's always room to grow there, but we've really done a good job at that. And then the accounting is also an area that we win at. We've got really good systems and processes since 2019, really established in 2018 with the current management and the accounting management and infrastructure and responsibility that we've got. That's all 5, 6, 7 years old now, and it is proven. So proven on accounting, proven on people management, leadership management. Follow us on our journey and come work with us and let us collaborate with you on the meeting. That's the way I see those three kind of big macro buckets that we can help with.
Yeah, and I know in talking to other businesses, there's this fine line of consultation and services that are being provided to that business. We have a threshold. White Picket has a threshold in of ourselves in terms of the services that we can provide. So when you're talking about media or marketing in general, that encompasses paid, organic, public relation.
Yeah,
there are some of these things that we can do in a consultative manner in coaching and guiding. But as far as running your paid Google ads, right now, that's something that we're not equipped to be able to provide consistently to provide results.
Although we have within our network the ability to refer to people that are very happy to take that business.
Yeah. And so I have thankfully been able to refer out to several people up to this point on people that I know do a dang good job that can do these things for them. So I'll get them in contact with whoever they be. Something I'm working on right now is, like I mentioned, talking to business owners about what is the biggest friction point, what is an area you want to grow in the most. I think in many cases, you can sum up a package of some kind that is multi-layered rather, that compounds on one another to help you accomplish that thing, whatever that thing is. So I'm trying to narrow down what are those, actually you just helped me talk through this a little bit more on like what are those areas, and then how can we backfill these systems in place that can add value to business owners without White Picket being put in a position to have to provide services that we are not capable of providing yet.
So there's actually a few other things to unpack here.
Let's do it.
The idea that literally I didn't think anything of it until I was talking about it and used it as an example. I think it was just yesterday or it was Wednesday. The book club. What I'm calling book club. What do we call that? It's on book club. It's book review. The book review.
Yeah, it's quarterly book review.
So we've had a quarterly book review for 2 years now. We're on our third year.
I've thought about this one because I think beyond it being a quarterly book review, what it is more so about, and I feel pretty strongly about this, is building a community of changing mindsets inside of the home services industry.
Exactly. So we need to take what started as Chorby's book review, 90 days, 4 books a year. Leadership is required to be there and to read them. If you want to be leadership someday, if you want to better yourself, we will pay for you to be there. You can be on the clock if you're a FERT technician or if you're a scoop technician that works directly for me. I can't control what the franchisees allow. But, that was the original concept. And of course, it went over to Scoop Soldiers, as I just alluded to, with the franchisees. And then we've tried to get it to as much as our people as possible. It's not perfect at all. And I wouldn't say that it's like something to write home about right now today. But the consistency is something to write home about. We've done it for 2 years. We're in our 3rd year. So we're on our our 9th book.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine the potential if we do exactly what you're talking about. You build a community about changing mindsets. That's what White Picket's mission needs to be about changing mindsets in the home service industry. We need to be building an organization that maybe looks up to the E-Myth Revisited organization.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's an entire industry built or a business built around that one book, and it's lots of books. They've even got it narrowed down into the different home service industries. And then there's management consulting. You can literally contact the E-Myth people.
And there's something to that in the same line of like the Kolbe personality test.
Yes.
Like it's obviously kind of in a different track, but
Kolbe, they basically have their market cornered, because if you want to understand Kolbe, you pretty much have to pay somebody to teach you.
Right.
But the other one, and so I agree with you, though. I agree with you. And whether it's Kolbe or whether it's
there's a ton of
life languages, there's dozens of them, dozens.
But it's an ecosystem of changing mindsets, and there's practicality with Kolbe and these other personality tests. But outside of that, it's a brand that you're building that is centered around changing mindsets.
But just starting from where we're at today, right now, with White Picket and this book review, we turn it into book club. I don't know, call it something better, but for now I'm going to call it book club. And it's a series, like you said. It's a subscription based thing, and business owners can basically buy into this and put this out to their teams, and their teams can take part in it.
Thing that has always been on the thing that I haven't figured out yet is there's a level of passivity.
Yeah, I know what the word you said it right.
Like what you know, what I'm saying, like
I can't repeat it, but you said it right.
But there's an element of like, here's this information. How do we make that actionable and implement it in a way that's actually going to practically change minds to impact the business? I don't know that I've quite figured that out. Outside of, you have a leadership staff that is backing it up and applying that, and by example, you are now impacting your businesses and your team members.
Let's come down to that. It's just like the meeting we had a few days ago, earlier this week. Our the other piece that ties right into what we're working on here at White Picket: open book management.
Yeah.
So you got book club as a potential game changer for certain businesses. If we can teach them, and if we can multiply and duplicate that, we can help professionalize home service businesses. Then we've got open book management, which we're kind of doing the exact same thing with, right? But talking through that, we've got to get engagement. We've got to get,
and it's really hard to do virtually.
Yeah,
like it's extremely difficult to do virtually.
But that's just an opportunity. We've got to innovate there.
Sure. Yeah. In my mind, I'm like, fly me out. Let's go run this course together in person. That's not realistic.
That leads me to another one that we're not capitalizing enough on, that you and I have briefly talked about, but not at length. And I know it's for you in your head, you're double-minded about it. Our John Maxwell certification, sir. We are both John Maxwell certified public speakers.
I'm coming way around on.
I know you are, but we haven't talked about it in 3 or 4 weeks.
Right. In terms of its
There's a huge opportunity for White Picket as a business, and for what we're trying to do with this blank canvas of a business. There's a huge opportunity for you individually, for me individually. I think we're overlooking that. If we leaned into that, we could capitalize more on that.
Expand on that a little bit more in terms of leaning into it.
Well, we need to own it more. We need to talk about it. We need to talk about how you are a John Maxwell certified public speaker.
I want to be a Ben Gonzalez certified public speaker.
Well, in due time, sir. But right now, you haven't written 86 books on leadership and public speaking
that all say the same thing.
And so, by all means, I totally agree with you. But
I know.
We could lean in on that and do something with it. Again, by all means, I recognize 98% of John Maxwell certified public speakers will never do anything. But there are 1% and 2% of them that are doing something, and they're doing something mostly on their own accord to the point you were just making.
Right.
But they're also, there is credibility in utilizing that certification.
Yeah.
We don't even talk about it.
Yeah. But I see your point. Yeah.
So how do we go out? This is what the purpose of this podcast is for. Of course, this is going to go on our website, and this is going on the Pet Waste Millionaire website, but it can also go on the future White Picket website to help articulate our vision for the business, if it makes sense. But how do we figure out how to make a difference between our open book management, between our book club, I'll call it for now, bad name, needs a better name, not to mention our accounting services and our John Maxwell certified public speaking certifications? How do we box that up and generate revenue, but also, of course, through that revenue, make a difference in the home services industry?
First thing I'm thinking of is when it comes to that leadership development, and more specifically, how do you change minds to impact your business? How do you create leaders, better leaders in your business? Once that's lined out in a little bit more detail, the first thing that I'm thinking of is inviting people to a consolidated event to display it. That's the first thing that we need to do, is get the word out and express it. Utilizing the network that we have, pay $100, $50 to attend whatever event, and we showcase what it is that we have to offer. That's the first thing I'm thinking of in line with that.
When do you see that happening?
I was about to say, and then there's the matter of executing on that idea. It's a wonderful question. Because the only reason I'm hesitating on that one is because we also are sitting on a bus that is about to head out across the country, and I don't know when we will have time to produce something like that in full swing.
I think we need to focus, like you just said, on the bus and the tour. Build the network first, and then we hold that conference, whether that's a year away or 2 years away. I think we can be doing $100,000+ a year in revenue at White Picket outside of our entities,
right?
Our current entities, and probably do that. We need to build up our existing following digitally. How do we have the conference digitally as we cross the country? We do that through this podcast and just networking, meeting people.
Yeah.
And asking people how we can help, especially in home services.
I need to be traveling more, don't I?
I don't know. I don't know that you need to be right now, but maybe in the future, yes. In the future, yes. And for the tour, again, I'm picturing us traveling twice a month. You travel once a month. I don't think that's too little. I think you're okay if you're traveling once a month on the tour. But on the tour, what are we doing for White Picket?
Right.
What are we doing to represent and build the brand and awareness for White Picket? That's your job. My job is build awareness for all the things we're doing. White Picket, Pet Waste, White Picket, Scoop Soldiers, Chorby. In the immediate, Scoop Soldiers and White Picket. In the future, Chorby. That's the way I see it right now. And I'm really in the immediate Pet Waste Millionaire. Because if Pet Waste Millionaire can get it, we can get all of them. All of it.
Yeah. I'm surprised you didn't say that first.
Should have. But you should be obsessed with White Picket. And White Picket's first biggest client, which is Pet Waste Millionaire.
It gets fun.
But no, I've been meaning to say the John Maxwell thing. We're John Maxwell. We can lean into that. And we've got that certification. It's life. You even went through the entire thing. I only went through 98% of it.
What?
I never did my official 3-minute keynote thing.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
And you still got your certification?
Of course I did. I paid.
I don't even think I talked for 3 minutes. I think it was like a minute and a half.
Exactly. And that's the thing. You and I poke fun at concept,
the process.
the process, but at the same time, we both totally recognize the value that it provides to its clients, to us, and to the other people. We also recognize the fact that there's not enough of it, and there's not enough education out there on it.
Yeah, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. It was the same for the John Maxwell process. It's a ton of really, really great information that anyone can benefit from. It's the implementation.
You have to implement.
Right.
And you get cynical because 1% of people actually implement it that actually go through it.
And I'm putting more emphasis that it's on the responsibility of the organization to make that happen, less on the person, which is where I'm coming to terms with.
Yeah.
Which is where I struggled with at first. I was like, this is a joke. Like, you can have all this information, but how are you actually impacting people? Well, Ben, shut up, because they've been doing it for years. Like, it obviously is having an impact.
You have to recognize that if you have, I'm using a big number, if you have 30,000 people at an event, you're not going to impact 29,000 of them. Right. You're going to impact 300 of them or 3,000 of them.
Yeah.
And the rest, but you, again, think of the church. Think of the church. I mean, big or small. We walk out of that church. I mean, why do you think you look at on any of these sites about servers and being in the serving industry? You don't want to work on Sunday afternoon after church. Well, on one hand, you could say, well, that's because Christians are jerks. They don't tip well, and there might be some truth to that, but it's not. That's the bulk.
Yeah.
Because most Christians go to church and leave church, go to church, leave church, go to church, leave church. Do they get anything actually out of it every week? Probably not. But 1% of the time. And if you go enough, it's hopefully going to get you.
Mm-hmm. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of energy that I want to put into facilitating more engagement. So I think about it, you just talked about church. Bentry has talked about this for years, that you have rows, you have circles. So you have rows, meaning you have people coming to the church to sit in and listen to a pastor speak. And then you have circles, where it's a smaller group, where you're actually getting more involved in a conversation, where there's more transparency, there's more authenticity, and there's more impact when you have that.
But the people in the rows have to make the decision for themselves to get into the circles.
Wholeheartedly understand.
I'm a church going that just hangs out on the rows. Haven't joined a life group ever. I've been married 14 years, 15 years, been going to church 20 plus. I was in some small groups before I was married, but we're sitting on the rows. We're engaged. We get benefit out of church, but it's our job. It's not the church's job to any more than what they can do.
That's what I'm saying. I'm coming to terms with that. But I still think there's like the pursuit that I'm interested in is facilitating opportunity for engagement, more engagement. Because I think that's where real impact happens for people.
I agree with you.
So I don't know what that looks like, but White Picket will do that eventually.
More relationship building. And again, circling back to the T-Pig tour and getting out there and representing and building the brand of White Picket.